Hi, it's me, Joan, mainline sociology. And due to the rapids of change uh, in the past, for me, week or so, I want to come at you with a heart to heart because what I've been thinking about is imagining what the whole entire dump concept of Marx, how it hits the actual person, you, people who I know have seen this or listened and tried to digest the heaviness and the darkness of Marx. And before I go any further, I will give you Weber and Durkheim, of course, but the next focus will be on C. Wright Mills, and I will pull him in to this conversation that literally is a heart to heart. And hey, I feel for you because it's wild to try to imagine what they knew physiologically, sociologically, philosophically in in the 1800s. We just never even thought that. So, let alone have this whole like capture plan that Marx lays out. And I want to clarify about the whole Halevi, da 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 da. Yes, that is their name, but this group, they're all Khazarians, just so you get that in your head, in all fairness. Okay. So that's the group of people that we're talking about ultimately all the way down to, the T, the where it goes, nobody knows. Point is, it came to my mind that um, long ago, one time, I had made dinner and I made a separate dinner for the boys, just plain chicken drumsticks. And then for the adults, with the sauce, like a cacciatore, right? Okay, so I feed the boys, I eat my part. My husband wasn't home, and everything's settled down. Everything's good. But I get sick as a dog. I got food poisoning, first time in my life. And if you've had food poisoning, 2 stages, think you're dying, wish you were dead. So I'm laying there. A couple hours later, what have you, my husband comes home. Oh, there you are, And oh, I'm so sick. Whatever you do, don't eat the chicken. Oh, I've been home for an hour. I had it. It was really good. Okay, let's stop there. Everybody's going to take in this information differently. All right. Because, yeah, if you think Marx is bad enough, I told you the trap is Weber, Durkheim, and then exposed by Mills. Okay. So it's horrible to think of this because we're so good. We're just going along with, the whole movement of look at how they had it set up. Okay. Depending on what kind of job level education you have, right? That's like the kind of house and lifestyle that was all set up for you. And so this quote unquote trap encompasses every single thing and down to the institutional interactions in your mind. And that's where I wanted to start with this fantastic encounter I had with my dental hygienist. It was just below mind. Um, oh, I have the greatest dentist, and every single person in there is just smart as a whip. I mean, you just can't even get your head around what they do there. Okay, so young gal, oh, little boy, he's cute. He's going into junior high. She goes into how, she dealt with, raised him as a human. Like, if you get hurt, you cry. If you have someone's hurt your feelings, You say so, you talk about it. So, oh, yeah, my boy's the same way. One thing people don't know is that males have deeper emotions and more hormonal fluctuations. Their hormonal fluctuations come daily, where women's come monthly, if you know what I mean. Okay. And their attachments become uh, so heartfelt and strong that it comes out, the devoted man situation, where we are led to believe that women have more emotion just because we can talk about our emotions a little bit more. We're allowed to be more emotional. We're expected to be, oh, they're on their cycle, right? Where men are constantly taking in information that way, and they have a higher level devotion. Plus, she's saying, yeah, my big brother's like, you're too soft on him. He's never gonna. And she said, well, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And that's all brought out by Bruce Perry, and uh, which is a different, very empirical level hormonal studies sort of thing, brain development. Anyway, so she goes on and on about her brothers, because she's talking, I'm getting my teeth cleaned. Okay, well, my brother's got a PhD in sociology, and I don't even, I've been trying to get him to tell me what sociology is, for as long as he's been, their brother and sister. And I said, well, sociology, the definition, let's start there. It's a study of institutional interaction, period, end, right? And I'm getting my teeth cleaned. He's like, oh, and I could see everything that he had, he had told her about sociology, like clicking in. It was really cool. It was a very good moment. In any case, maybe I didn't make that clear, is that sociology is the study of institutional interaction. Now, what do you already know? Is all the institutions are created, right, through the beliefs, ideologies, so on and so forth, of the superstructure, and we just hold it up. We already know that from Marx. Okay? So the study of institutional interaction is the study of institutional interaction in your head that they implanted. Okay, that's a whole nother issue, but it's connected to how institutionally related things are. Okay, and for one example, we know that the Khazarian group, okay, they had the brain down pat. They knew how to destroy our pituitary glands based on their study in asylums of millions of people over hundreds of years. They knew exactly how to manipulate that. They knew exactly how to manipulate our hormonal area. That's below mind information. You just got to get that in your head, because that's all empirically, historically, whatever, proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. All right, so everybody's going to take this information. Oh, I'm not a programmed robot. I'm not a dead labor force. I'm not a person who is the intelligentsia and is trying to fight for my freedom. That's like some other high level thing. What, I don't know how you're reacting. I mean, to sit here and give yourself a check in emotionally with this information is a good idea, because why I'm doing this mainline is to show you the actual real reality that I've only learned in the past 6 years, and it's made me throw up a couple times. So if that's why the first step in learning the system is to become marginalized from it, understand your role, what institutions are in your brain, which is a lot. Like Roseanne, she says, I was a divided person. I was this person, I was that person, yada, yada, right? And she called it integrative therapy. It wasn't until I had my integrative therapy that hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's exactly what you do. You just withdraw from the institutions, and then you learn to see the world with your heart, with what you know to be true, after mainline sociology and your own personal inquiries. Once you make peace with that, and those institutions are gone out of your mind, they're literally gone out of the world. That is the end of that. So I just want you to know that I am, a human with compassion, and it just it crushes me. It crushed me at first, but I'm used to Marx. 30 years I've known this and more, and used it as an analytical tool to look at what's going on. And that's what I wanted to start the chat about, C. Wright Mills. So by about 1958, during the 50s, and let's set that stage for a second right here. From the 1930s until then, so, a whole generation, we were farmers spread across a huge, vast wilderness of land. So between 1930 and 1950, there were books and newspapers, books like Horatio Alger, Farm Boy Makes Good, and The Big City, getting the pipeline moving to get these males off their farmland into universities to seek prestigious positions in the world. All right. The newspaper, oh yeah, it's been so hard, my my grandfather, everybody's out there shoveling and taking care. There's a lot of work to do on a farm. People forget. And so drawn into universities. Well, one of these victims, I guess you could call it. And don't forget, they caused owning the agricultural markets. They could, at a whim, make farmers rich or poor based on certain factors too. So for some, it was economic necessity to join the armed forces, right? That was one of the pipelines to get the men off of the property. But also universities. So the best and brightest is sort of a pre-selection thing going on back then, but you get the idea. So one of these guys was, from, you're not going to believe it, Waco, Texas, right? Okay, so here's this Texan, formidable guy, just a regular guy. He gets into this whole sociology, reading Marx, reading Weber, Durkheim, looking at the institutions that were, promoting and how they were talking about them. Because the way they talk about quote unquote academics, the way they talk about these thinkers is completely different from if you read them and understand and feel them with your heart. It's a hard thing to describe, but that's the reality of the environment. Well, he knew that. And you got to remember, at this time in the 50s, by the 50s, he had two world wars to analyze. He had a whole body of what they call critical thinking, like these Horkheim and Derendorf and stuff, and people like this, who, this sort of it's like a covering of the deception of the straightforwardness of Marx. Let's call it that way. And to give you an example, these critical theorists were, not shy about saying, we are going to get to non-identity. I could give you a quote out of, the dialectical imagination. It says exactly that. We want no identity. And the way they argued it was because of World War II happening, and we, people in the world know about that atrocity right there. That makes us a worse person. Just because we know about it. This is the way they talked. Okay? So it goes back to, trying to fight against the superstructure as the working class is pointless, right? Because that's what they're saying. Well, it's pointless. So we want them to have no identity, and the worst things we can throw at them, i.e., the Holocaust and the horrible atrocities done there. And, even if you're 20 years old at this point, I'm sure you know about the exterminations. And along with that information, what you need to know is that what happened in Germany pales in comparison to what happened in Russian, in the Tartarias, in that continent, in that the capture of the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay, that capture killed. There's not even a count, you guys. I'm serious. They say 25 million, but quote unquote scholars say it's in the hundreds of millions. You count the poverty, you count it is just, it's Stalin. Okay, remember? Hello, Lenin. Okay, well, you don't remember because they want you to, thinking about what happened in Germany is bad enough for us. That makes us bad people already. So if you're born into, even if you don't know World War II, what's that? You're already born into a world where you're a worse person because your parents were a worse person. They knew that. You see where I'm going? They knew that. They're sensitive to that. You want to see a massacre? Go down, just go on your Google right now and look at the lithium mining in Africa right now. Okay? You think that's not a Holocaust? I mean, the murderous, if you want to go on about the murderous rampage of imperialism, which you learned that concept already, thank you very much. And the goal of that, expanding capitalism around the world, which means expanding the exploitation of the workforce around the world. And they do it by any means. In this case, we're talking about war, downright war. Downright, this Lenin killed 35 to 100 million people. Okay? Did I make you a worse person because you know that? Like critical theory says, these Germans? Oh, no. Well, no. I made you a person more aware of the psyop going on in your head. If you think that's a division, if you think they care about if somebody's Jewish or Christian or Muslim or anything like that, you're crazy. It's anybody, right? Who are these 100 million people that are dead, and who are these young people over Africa, all over the place? It's so much worse than what you think. Okay, I'm just talking to you like a person. out of the air to myself. But that this is reality, and these are the kind of things that will let you settle in to your Marxist. It can be a shock. Um, it took me years to learn that, and even more years to teach it, and even more years to look at the world that way. I mean, I'm used to that. And I think it's very important to understand that. And because if you follow President Trump, and if you've heard what he says, one of his major groups that he's talking about, he's like, we got to get these Marxists out of here. Hello, do you think? I mean, God bless him. He identifies the actual group right there. Now you think, well, I never really heard of Marx, but I don't know what you thought it was. But if you've taken an intro to sociology class, maybe you didn't learn Marxist theory, but you heard Marxist thought coming at you. Because this is very sophisticated, not just Marx, but how Weber works in, and how the introductory situation of sociology is introduced to the young mind. Okay, it's all part of the craft of how it works. And for me, it's easy for me to flip that around, and I want you to be able to flip that around, because all you have to do is know theory, and then you see it. All right, then you see what's going. It's just ubiquitous. Okay, so I know I'm rambling, but this is about you learning to see the system, in which you first have to get that system out of your head. And for some people, that's easier than others. By when Weber talked about empiricism bringing, sort of simultaneously Durkheim with the empiricism, he says, well, yeah, empiricism is nice, but you have to be a completely detached observer. How's that possible? Well, it is possible, all right? And that's what they didn't see coming with me, because that's a whole other story. Because, and it might be easy for you, if you feel like you have some sort of social marginalized status. If you don't feel like, oh, I'm going to school, I'm doing my job, I have my car, I got my, situation under control, or gosh, you don't know how to, I have my family, and thank God I have my family, because we have our home here, and yes, we do our jobs, what we do out there, but we come home, and this is why I do it. Okay, wherever you're at with it, you're already under the enchantment on a level that is hard to take. That's why I'm rambling here. It's hard to take that. Same way it's hard to take if you've ever had a child or been a child that was forced to go to kindergarten, and it's like that's your first break, your first fracture of your mind. I knew what was going on in my life. I had people around that loved me, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm in this cold, sterile environment, people telling me to sit down, shut up, and obey. Okay, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for the child. It's hard for the parent. I'm never over it. I knew what was going on. He ended up not being in kindergarten for more than a couple of weeks because I saw what's going on there. But still, we could go into that horrifying process, and that's where it really starts, where you start getting these dialectics in your mind, and you start getting these fractures. Or pick a point in your life that you started seeing the fractures. And as long as you can see them and know they're not you, you somehow get over it. And like I said, Roseanne said, integrative therapy. which sounds like that would be how, you integrate yourself, right? And the more marginalized you are, the more you have a heart mind identity and you're looking at things, you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what you're going to encounter, but you can get yourself through it because you can, no matter what it is. And it gets very hard when you think about how big the quote unquote juvenile justice system, you have the whole education system as a feeder to the juvenile justice system or to the workforce or wherever. It's kind of like an assembly line, just like, remember, farm boy makes good. Okay. And then, the inclusion of women, the way they introduced the quote unquote inclusion of women into academia was brutal, as you see, which is not true, in fact, because before all this system, women, they were responsible to be the teachers. So, you know, and that whole Kazarian, they set up the old boys club. So, to and we're taught to treat women a certain way, like they're going to be the secretary. You following me? It's like a little game. It's like a little dollhouse for them, and they'll just it's in some ways funny, right? But it's our slavery too. And the thing is like Roseanne said again, she goes, I can tell you one thing. It changes in a second. You can change that in a second. And what she's saying is just be yourself, right? And I can't think of anybody that in my life that is more herself than her. And that's what makes her a good teacher. So um she's doing, yeah, very, very excellent. I took a video of that. Oh, if you don't know who she is a comedian. Okay. And she's also a biblical and theological scholar. Little known fact. So I just love her. Um, so back to C. Wright Mills, this is really the person who is responsible for us being able to see all these little feeder cells, the institutional interaction, how the whole thing works together as a trap, and what they do. You're thinking, okay, well, what's all this for in it for them, right? Well, they have all this other business going on. Okay, so this is what we're preparing ourselves to learn, and learning more every day. What they were doing behind the scenes while they were busy with their little let's see how we can move people around deal and create prestige. Like, okay, because the reason that a farm boy might want to go to college, oh, he went to college, he got a big job in, we saw him when he came on the plane. The jet age changed distance. We used to love our families, extended families. In fact, a lot of families today, they stay around in the same areas, right? My best friend growing up, when she got married and her brothers and sisters got married, they bought houses within, a few miles of their parents' house, where some cultures be like, okay, well, you're from the Midwest, but you're going coast to coast. So that was the first, real fracture of that institution, which is the central institution. They don't want you to think that, but that's a secret. Anyway, so C. Wright Mills exposes all these things. And if you have taken a sociology class, you have seen it too. Your professor has put up a picture of how all the corporations work together. They've known the 1% runs the world, academically, empirically, theoretically, money-wise, for 30 years. You can find these charts. Okay, so that's no big secret. that there's this very small group that runs all the systems where your money's going into. You know that too. Okay. That is from a sociology class, or else you probably learned that. You've heard of this. Oh, it's the 1%, right? Well, yeah, but it might be less than that, but who knows? So what C. Wright Mills does is he's from Waco, Texas, which I just can't seem to get over that. But he ends up at Columbia University. All right. And when I say Columbia, Oxford, Princeton, Cambridge, Harvard, those, your academics are drooling over these institutions. When I think of that, being in academia, and oh, they're at Cambridge, oh, they're at Oxford, still to this day. But I always picture like a wolf with saliva coming out of his mouth. I don't know why, but they are like, if they say something happens, then it does, then it happens. Remember Stephen Hawking, he told us exactly how the universe works, and we know, so we believe that because he was at most prestigious position probably in academia. As an aside, so Mills saw these connections, and he also saw what was going on with the damn Yankees, as he put it in one of his books, and how they were manipulating this MIC, military industrial complex, around the world to their ends, to war, specifically Cuba. All right? That's what was going on at the time. And back then, to be an academic meant you actually did write books. You actually did write articles. When as in 30 years later, reading these books, very difficult words to read, okay? This is not easy reading, but thank God I already had read my brains out for these three other jokesters that I'm going to talk about, or Mark's one of them. So, I could follow along. All right. So, he's a professor at Columbia. And back then, being a professor was just about the best job that a person could get, because you just go through graduate school and you're placed, and you have, back then you got tenure, the whole 9 yards. You're just allowed to talk about whatever you want, to, search out whatever you want, and to behave in what was, still the culture of the 90s, where, or maybe now, I don't know, but my professors would flat out say, well, yeah, that chair's there for a reason. Okay, so this is just not that he was, but I'm just saying, even in that crowd, you kept it under you never talked about it. The only reason why my level professors talked about it is because it was over by then. Okay, like the whole 70s sunk in. You don't sexually harass, but it wasn't like that before. And if you've ever seen the TV show Mad Men, you'll see that the whole structure of advertisement, which is the main focus of the sociological bastard son, whatever you want to call it, but that's the way business was set up. And then there was the more even liberal level at the university level. And I'm talking about the 50s. Okay. Anyway, well, Mills was actually a serious intellectual, because if you read this, you're not hearing from the other 1,000 whatever sociology professors back then in writing, are you? No, because they were too busy living their pre-planned lifestyle, if you're following that. Okay, so reading Mills, He's the highest level. He got the best job. He's the smartest one. He's doing the writing and the legwork and had the intellectual capacity to synthesize the three founding fathers of sociology and to dismiss these, you know, dialectical imagination, critical theorists, you know, symbolic interactionist, functionalist people in the lurch because they were just, you know, a cover story for the three fundamental ones. All right, so sorry that I psychoanalyzed, not sorry that I psychoanalyzed C. Wright Mills, but we are fast forwarding. I didn't want to fast forward, but when I hear the MIC come up yesterday alone 3 times, you better know what this is. And this is the consolidation of the superstructure, the part that you don't know about because remember, they control your beliefs, the institutions you belong to, your role in life. They have slots already. So this whole thing might be over your head. And then, you know, they have cover stories for where all this money goes, you know, which by 2000 it was, I don't know what happened to $15 trillion. Okay, so there's your answer, or there's your sign, as um Jeff Foxworthy and all them say, there's your sign. I forget, it might not be that guy. Anyway, that's what we're dealing with. Okay. So what he said, just from the heart, is he's finally, after exposing this, you know, he used words like interlocutory and I'll get specific with that, but this interlocking network. And once you can see that in your head, where you can see the education system, where you can see the war companies, where you can see the supporting cast, I guess you would call it, with your CIA and with your FBI and with your law and order and with your, well, there's nothing wrong with the institutional interaction here. It's all you. You're the one who can't, you know, fit in. If you were just more disciplined, you know, if you could get up at 8 o'clock and be here on time, right? Or you should be a doctor like your father, or whatever it may be in your life that doesn't feel real. That's where Weber comes in with his rationalization. And it's like, well, I just better fit in. Think about total institution. What if you're a prisoner who doesn't belong there and you're in prison? And what do you say? You keep your head down and you just be quiet, because what are you going to do? There's a guard standing there. That guard's in that prison too. Don't forget. And there was already a statistic that reminds me, there's already a statistic back in 1980 something, where if current levels of incarceration keep going, okay, then everybody's either going to be a prisoner or a guard. That's a true fact. All right. And what's happened? You feel like a prisoner or a guard? Just saying. I mean, it's incredible how big this system is, and how you have for as for a Mills principle, you know, the district attorneys who decide what cases come to trial. I mean, we sort of know what the law is, right? You're not allowed to kill somebody. You're not allowed to steal, right? But whether you get caught and what you get caught for and how the law is interpreted is up to the DNA. Whether you get arrested, the DNA, the DA, right? Or the county attorney. They're the ones who decide. So when you have a network this big, guess who's getting caught by that system? The people who didn't do anything, right? Because they're not going to catch the people who they are. The whole system is designed to cover that up. So that is a trap in itself. So what do? You go, I never steal. I wouldn't take a pencil home from the office. And that's a true fact. People actually say that, like define themselves as a bad person because they steal office supplies. Well, hello. Think of that funnel system. Think about what you're doing there, at your job. What are you doing? Are you living your heart's desire? Are you delighting in every moment? Or are you worried about, are you, so much better than everybody else because you don't steal office supplies? I mean, that right there, when you think about how much money we're talking about, you can't get your head around $1 trillion. I tried to one time. I tried to do it by time. Like if $1 million were this much time and $1 million is you can think about that amount of time, but you can't even think about how it's like 27 years or a century, a trillion or something. I don't know. It's a lot. It's way more than if everybody took every single office supply out of every single office they ever worked in forever for all time. So just forget about that. But the fact that they even have you thinking that is some sort of prosecutorial offense is criminal, and it gets much worse as I bring out the system in my own research alone. Okay, so this is where Marx goes. I want you to be clear, and Mills exposes so well, and that's just going to be formal. I'll do that later on today, formally introduce you to him. But without a context, there is no chance. I mean, most people you ask out there don't even know the hierarchy of education. I mean, I didn't know well, I knew it because of my family, but in in college, people be like, okay, first you have your associate's degree, or you can get a 2-year degree. Then you have a 4-year degree, and that's a baccalaureate degree, which, is sometimes, but not always, preceded by an associate's degree. Then you have your graduate school level, which is either a 2-year master's program or a 4-year PhD program. So a PhD can have a master's degree, a baccalaureate, and associates first. And then nowadays, see, expanding capitalism is not just exploiting more workforce, it's expanding the notion of what goes on. So you have all these branches of education now too, like you get a certificate in this one, or sometimes in high school you can get the medical tech certificate. I mean, to even think about the amount of certification certificate, that word is insanity. So, and all these labels are doing is they're creating a dull workforce, OGY, right? Remember, that means dull, LOGY. So they're grooming you for each of these so-called slots that they have in society prepared, and they know how you're going to behave because they gave you the certificate. So that comes back to my line where, after I said to my dental hygienist, so I said, I didn't say I was a sociologist, did I? Because I don't admit that. No way. That's, in a way, I'm ashamed of it. But I said, I didn't say, because I don't say that in public. I don't give myself a title or a category. That's part of being socially marginalized. And if you have to enter into an institutional identity, at least you know you're doing it. Okay, I don't know how to change my personality in situations, but that is by choice. I said, no, I don't know how. I didn't bother ever doing it. And I never talk to myself in my bedroom as much as I talk to you from here. So that's unusual for me. So these institutional identities are highly predictable, and they do social testing on it all the time. Well, what if we take away this right? What if we change this law? How is that going to move the conscious masses? Because ultimately you're ruling by your belief, by yourself, by your own inner power. That's how you're really ruling your life. You're choosing which institutions, where to put your creative intelligence. We learned that from Marx, right? That sort of, I was going to leave it to Weber to show you, but there is this force, okay, that ultimately you choose how to spend your time. Like right now, I'm choosing to talk to myself in my bedroom, staring at the wall. And these froggies. This is my Moskowitz folder. I just made this. Yes, so my Moskowitz, speaking of, trust me, I have no idea where this conversation was going, but I knew that I wanted to express my condolences to those who are struggling with the concepts in Marx. It makes you normal. So most of us ignore this, and that's one of the things I did in the late 70s. I mean, I was, down on Ventura Boulevard, and that's when I discovered um, this, this, the Moskowitz, because I just love all his work. Maybe you don't know Stuart Moskowitz, so I wanted to show some, and I just downloaded some things. It seemed appropriate for where my mind is going with this. So, for example, one of the things that is coming out with this MIC, or and has been known, and I'll talk about that for a little bit. This whole funneling into cities and building cities and rebuilding cities. Another component of this we didn't know, which is a very explorable area right now, is that they were building as underneath as much as on top. And if you follow someone like John Levy, for years he's been going, well, look at all these buildings that are like halfway melted out, and look at all these cities that, like I think of Compton. Let me say the word Compton to you, and you probably have some sort of, envisioning in your mind of what Compton is. Well, what that vision is, or what that feeling is, or what that false concept is, what you've seen is what they've done to Compton. Because I've seen Compton, 40 years ago, brownstone homes, beautiful old world, like Summit Avenue in Minneapolis. That's getting destroyed right now, this old world. So as this came in, this funneling, remember, we're all separated out. This country's huge. We're farming. There were villages. We talked about that, right? So they're building this infrastructure, and we forget to notice that there's this, they showed you right away, right? They called it the Cold War for a long time. So just to throw some things in there that I wanted to throw in for you, that this is, they tell you. I mean, they tell you everything that's going on in some way. Now, when they had television programs and so on, and of course, our favorite one, my reason for doing this, my reason for mainline sociology, to serve man. um but and it came out in strange ways, which any kind of normal person thinks, oh, that's all science fiction, do. So that was all part of this funneling in there, um that was going on. But we forgot to notice, well, these are the things that we have to know, and why I'm doing this mainline sociology is because there are fundamental, founding, 100% easy to understand once you get over the shock, academic places that you can do it. So back to my dental hygienist. Remember, I'm not talking, she is. And now we're on this PhD. I said, well, watch my mainline straight up. Get your brain to click, click, click in everything he said. Listen to him, come back at him with institutional interaction. And, but I, maybe as a summary, but what I said was, no offense, but he can't tell you what sociology is because he doesn't know. And this is the crime that I've seen over and over and over again in the academia world, right? You get so sidetracked with whatever sidetracks they're putting, certifications and this and disciplines for that, and this is separate from this, and you can't understand this because you don't have this certification and all that. I mean, that is, to be trapped in that, to me, would be hell. It was briefly hell. You get out of that kind of thing fast because you can't roll your eyes hard enough. Let me give you a real easy example that you will understand no matter what age you are, because you probably heard of the Head Start program. All right, they don't just want to get you at 5 in kindergarten, which means child crop, okay, and the system is a ritual process when you zoom way out. But this whole Head Start program comes out, and I'm talking to a colleague. I read the studies. They ran this a television campaign that said the more early education a person has, the sooner you get them into school, the more successful and more likely they'll be to get into college. And that's, colleges was still prestigious, I guess, in the 90s it's always been prestigious. Okay. Well, I read the studies supporting, quote unquote, that argument. You got to be kidding. All you have to do is, get the little propaganda notebook that they put out for their program and how much it's going to cost and how much it's going to benefit and da. And then they'll have references at the end. Well, I read the references. Oh, right, it's my job. I mean, here's a new social program coming in, or expanding social program coming in. I want to know the studies that they're basing this whole TV blitz advertising and brainwashing campaign, turns out to be, about this. So I had read that, I didn't talk to my colleagues very often, but I had already read that. My information's under my belt. And I said, about my child, I would never, Christmas party, we're eating the spinach dip, and I would never put my child in daycare. I never even had a babysitter except for his grandmother. if he was in school, I watched him like a hawk, and she just tore me a new one. Don't you know that you have to get your child into, daycare, all that stuff to, oh God, don't make me go there. But I said, did you read the studies? I tried to, but she was in a fury. The studies basically were on a cohort study, one cohort study of 8 children from the projects in Chicago that they followed. Cohort study means you choose the people, you follow them through the 20 years. And I guess, based on how many people from the projects went to college, based on how many of these 8 children went to college because they put them in a program when they were 2. It's heartbreaking. And this whole Head Start program, of course, is to get more people into the home, to expand the system, right? We need to hire a whole bunch of people to go into a home and show people how to, clean their toilet and stuff. So if you understand imperialism, there are more subcategories for this, but the idea of expanding the system, getting into the mind earlier, is the Marxist way. It's very important to understand that, and that probably click a whole bunch of things in your life that's like, oh yeah, I was wondering why I had to learn algebra when I was in 8th grade and they weren't teaching me how to, be nice to other people and start dating and all that. It explains a lot. So what Mills comes in and does is shock everybody, because you're supposed to be this, you don't understand my perspective because I'm a Marxist. You don't understand my perspective because I'm a functionalist. You don't understand my, right? And he just zeroes in and he gets everybody. All right. He tells you how you behave. He tells you, how the traps are. He tells you how the institutions work together. He tells you how the hierarchy works. He tells you how at the highest levels you're sitting on every single board of every single corporation. You have dual citizenship, and you're dual that too, but you have dual, you work for the pharmaceutical companies, and then you also work for the governing bodies of the pharmaceuticals. And if you don't remember, we saw on Bill Clinton's cabinet that exact thing. You had 4 out of 5, this is off the top of my head, but you had 4 out of 5 people sitting there on his cabinet that were directly connected to industry, the industry they represented. So this is how it works. And this is what if I was going to throw one concept at you with C. Wright Mills, this would be it. And to understand that, is to understand a lot about this. So C. Wright Mills has many published works, and there's extremely comprehensive, meaning he tells you the name of the board that this one's on and that one's on, and how they're all kicks ass and takes names as an understatement. Okay. What happens to him in academia? What happens to him? Remember, you pick up any intro to sociology textbook, and you will see status ranked by prestige. There's characteristics, but prestigious careers, money, so on. They'll rank being a professor as the top prestigious career. Well, once you get that, you also get a higher life expectancy. So that's why you see these old as the hills professors, right? Because they're living so long because they're having a great time. There's nothing like talking about what you know, and what you love. What happened to C. Wright Mills? Tragic accidental death at 42. Just get your head around that. This is why it's hard for me to hard for me not to skip ahead, because if you understand what I said right there, you not only understand the system, you understand it. But that doesn't mean it's right. If someone is comprehensive and smarter than you because they've looked at this, or this is their discipline, and they tell you the truth of what the system is, you don't kill the messenger. It's like that lady who's standing on the scale with a shotgun. But that's why there's a good reason why you don't know that you have a bunch of institutions crammed in your head, and you don't know that your pineal gland and your pituitary gland is being poisoned and manipulated and has been through generations. Okay? So give yourself a break when you're trying to digest sociology, because you can understand it. If you really go back and listen to Marx straight up, and then the subsequent theorists, you'll go, well, yeah, I see it just like a superhighway in my mind how it works. And I don't have to participate. Or what our time out of time liminal COVID did for us is we got to choose. I mean, we got to sit at home and go, gee, you mean I don't have to go to the office to work? I like this so much better. I like staying home and doing my work here. We had a chance, and that's what my thesis is about, is taking that time out of time, and we can get there. But I want to leave you with the idea, and this does make me feel better because my mind has been tortured by how to move forward with the podcast. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll just be myself. And I don't want to poison you. And the way that you can learn this information and not be poisoned is to first get them out of your head. Wow, I can't believe I believed in one of these remote identities. That's how it'll be. It'll be just like, oh my God. I've seen people change personalities just the other day, and I'm glad this is coming in too, because since I don't hang around very many people and observe them in their element very often, is a good example. So there was a small emergency involving a neighbor, and we're standing there together. The first phone call she makes to her husband was, screaming and yelling and complaining and, hurry up and we need help and whatever. Okay. And then 2 minutes later, someone else called after we had, assessed the situation, I thought, and she was really nice. She's like, yeah, oh yeah, we got it all taken care of. And I thought, oh, your husband must think like, whoa. She changes. Oh, that wasn't my husband. That was my dad. She's a different person to her husband than she is to her father. And maybe I can leave you with thinking about that. It's like, am I a different person when I'm at work? Am I a different person when I'm home with my child? Am I a different person when I'm with this friend or that friend? Then you can start identifying who you think you are to that person, or how that could possibly be. Okay, and you don't have to wonder very long. It's because you have these institutions in your mind. And that is really the cause of from a sociologist, see, I can't even say it. As a sociologist, to me, it is the cause of all illness, all disease are these institutions in your mind. Now, that may or may not be shown. You need your bacteria. It's yin and yang. Get the institutions out of your head and realize what you are. Your bacteria start acting like it, right? Get your feet out there in the mud and look at some rocks because, anyway, kidding, not kidding. I feel better. It doesn't matter what people say. I think that people have attention spans that are longer than 5 minutes, and nobody could ever listen to it. That's fine. I did it for me. I got it out. I warned you. Hey, when I got out of graduate school, my little party for, passing all this crap is, I said, but you didn't tell me. Oh yeah, I told you it'd be bad. I said, no, you didn't tell me. Basically, you didn't tell me I'm trapped in a system that I now understand, and now it's up to me to navigate my whole rest of my life knowing this. Think that's easy? No. Yeah. Being ignorant to this and being is I can't imagine how that is, but um talk about developing an expertise for detached observer, right? But I've been pulled back in. I know what my heart knows, and I know the levels of these deceptions that are going on. And I also know the repugnance of learning the reality of these deceptions that seem to have no end. And it's hard, but you know what? We're tough. We can do this. We have a lot of help behind the scenes, as far as the worst of it goes. And it's my job, it's my duty, I feel like, to teach social theory. But I wanted you to know that it's hard, and I wanted you to be prepared because it's internal too. And nobody needs therapy, right? I don't want to send anybody over the deep end. Oh my God, I got to go have a drink because I'm going to be controlled by institutions the rest of my life. No. As soon as you identify it, you're out of it, right? Okay, Joan out.